Welcome to a new episode of Getting to the Truth in This Art from MTR Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is Isolina Minjeong Alva. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on. I am actually pretty pumped about this. I'm happy to speak to another artist, someone that's doing good things. So let's get into it. Let's, talk about your work. Let's talk about you. So, describe your work.
Yeah, well, so I'm a sculptor, and I've worked in like a lot of different mediums, plaster wood, and I guess I've been trying to create these characters, and after fumbling through like just these, turning these drawings into these sculptures, I wanted to keep me okay, sorry I'm so fumbly. I have found ceramics after 2 years of trying to sculpt in like every medium possible. And it's the medium that I found is like most intuitive and that like kind of goes whose speed is kind of matches like my brain power, you know, like wanting to jump on all these ideas. You can start 12 different projects at a time, go back to, you know, from one to the other, and you don't have to just measure and go through all those extra steps of like calculating things that you would with other mediums.
Sure. So, and that you mentioned that you've kind of worked with other mediums. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preferred medium, and what are the advantages of using one versus another?
That's actually a great question. So I, in my last year of college, I just graduated, I started working with, I guess you could say, microbial entities. So I was able to work with E. coli cells and kind of get them to glow in the dark. And so I was working with this dope scientist who actually runs Bugs, which is the Baltimore Underground Science space. And so Ryan Hoover, he was this really amazing professor who kind of taught us, it's almost like it was a reorientation to life. Studying like just little things like little cells, bacteria, and then humanizing them. And so that, even though they're so tiny and like on a hierarchy of living materials, they kind of seem at the bottom to some people, he was able to bring them into kind of like bring them up right next to us, that, you know, they're just as important, they're just as beautiful. So I grew fluorescing E. coli cells into a print of my mom. And it made, it's like taking care of my mom kind of vicariously through these cells that have a lifetime of their own that was very short. That was just as potent as, like, for example, trying to sculpt her, if not more potent than sculpting her, because there's an element of care. And the same element of care goes into making a work. Like, you have to cover it, you have to let it dry, you can't like just make something and leave it. Then you have to go through firing it and then putting, you know, color glaze over it. So it's just, I think both of those two, they're totally different experiences, but they both kind of have that common denominator of looking out for them.
Yeah, I think it's important, like that artists kind of make the distinction that they create something and there's an investment that is, it's like, that's your child, that's your thing. You have to like bring it up or what have you. And I think a lot of times in like art criticism that, people just say, oh, well, I didn't like that. Just don't care, no consideration, nothing. And yeah, it's just good to hear that it's, you have to care about what you're doing, not just create and move on to the next thing, but care about what you're doing. So it's important to hear that.
Yeah.
So in your practice, and in your approach, how does it connect you to Baltimore? How did it bring you to Baltimore?
Well, I was born and raised in Glenview, Illinois, which is just a goofy suburb outside of Chicago where Ferris Bueller's Day Out was shot, where Mean Girls was based off of. And so I'm pretty sure like everyone has watched those movies. And I moved to Baltimore for my mom's work with Social Security. And so I was in Frederick for a little bit, and then my mom was commuting all the way downtown. And then at one point, she decided to move us to Howard County. And so that's like right outside of the Baltimore County lines, like a 15-minute drive into the city. And so moving there gave me the opportunity to go to shows with friends, and eventually, really spontaneously, I made a portfolio to go to MICA in 2 weeks. Everything is always like super short notice, 2 weeks. It's like a common theme. But so I rejected, or I guess I pulled my application from San Diego State, pulled it out, lost my deposit, thought I was going to go to school for business. And I ended up staying here for another 4 years, going to art school.
That's a shift. I had a shift where I was looking to do like it was like kind of different, nothing like creative really, in that I was going to go to school, like go to college for like robotics. I wanted to do engineering. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do business because physics is hard and it's a lot of math and all of that. And luckily I like copped out really early before I got to deposit time. And I was like, let me fail now. Let me just make this decision now and figure it out. But, yeah. And I think, based on your work, you made a really good decision. And as a person with a business degree, it's not always cracked up to be. So what is the message in your art? And what's the message in your art? I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I feel like there are a lot of messages. I think I definitely send one, just being such a multiculturally, not multiculturally brought up, but like, you know, I'm full of like so many different family lineages, and like being someone who is able to just like, I think, start from a very young age, this like really, you know, amazing or just really exciting art career. That's like one message. Like, you know, you can be young, you could be, you know, full of different cultures, and then just like boss through and just, you know, make the work that you want and not really have people telling you what it means. Just like making that your own, like, I think ascribing value to things that, you know, you hold meaning to. But also, like, I feel like, you know, like someone who was born in 97, I grew up watching a particular stream of cartoons and definitely like living with Nintendos. And I think like I grew up really fast. And so now I'm trying to like be a kid again, in a way that is like also commenting on just growing up in this weird experience. And I think about it historically too. Like when you look back at work, artwork or sculptures in particular, you can kind of get a hint of what that time period could have been like. And mine is definitely reflecting on what it means to kind of live in the apex of humanity when we have so many cartoons and technology. And like, I grew up with technology, and so that kind of like accompaniment of wanting to be next to something that you grew up with watching all the time, it's like bringing that a step further, like turning a memory into a sculptural experience.
Okay. Yeah. That, you know, it gives me a question. I've been described as a cartoon character on more than one occasion. What cartoon character has had an influence on your work, or what three? Like name however you want to do it. Name cartoon characters that have an influence on your work.
Yeah, so I think for me, like, I watched The Misadventures of Flapjack, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and then like for some reason the Flintstones, like those like hunky dudes, Adventure Time. I think also I even look back. I used to watch a lot of old. I guess like whatever was on like the Sunday cartoon channel. That's my puppy over there. I watched a lot of like kind of not vintage, but like super old Mickey Mouse, like the way that they move, the way that they jump. The characters are like made in such cute, blocky ways. Lots of Looney Tunes for sure. But I think all of those have like amalgamated into my own kind of characters that have like bits and pieces.
Yeah. a few of the ones that I like were definitely, when you said Adventure Time, I was like, I see that. I see, how I guess like the characters are shaped, that they're familiar, but also it's just like they're unique, they're distinct to that Pendleton ward or the different people that work there with their stuff in each thing. Like, a lot of the stuff that was on Cartoon Network, it was just like we have a distinct thing is in the writing is and how the characters are put together, but they're very unique. They all don't look cookie cutter, and it's like even like We Bare Bears, which is something I don't watch, but it's just like, all right, I get it. This is fine. Like because I'm old, my show would probably be like Regular Show.
Oh,
that's just
I love the Regular Show. Oh man.
Regular Show is fire, and that follow up Close Enough is also really good. So let's see. How has your approach to getting in that creative zone and putting out your work or working on your work, how's that changed from maybe early on? And in what ways has that changed from early on to, let's say, more recently?
So I guess like early on would be being 16 and just drawing all these, characters that I kind of developed. And so I was also really inspired by album art. And so like Portugal the Man, or even like, so that all of their albums designed by their lead singer. And then from Marcel Dezama to designing like back albums, my work was basically very 2D. And it was a lot of like just Sharpie or like big pens. So that was like my mica portfolio. And I was able to like draw whenever I wanted and then go out into the world and just like hang out with friends and then come back to that when I wanted to. But as I got older, I think it's not like I stopped hanging out with people, but it's become like something I don't just pick up once or twice a week. It's something that I do every day. It's something really great where like, or it's this relationship that's become symbiotic at this point. Like I'll go and build you up and just like get you over there, and then like I guess what I get back is something like this friendship of like being able to just like think about a lot of things and feel like I'm creating these like companions that'll just now exist forever until someone like takes a mallet and destroys them. But I mean, you have to like spray the clay to just keep it moist so it doesn't dry up too fast sometimes, especially like at the rim when you're going to build another half of a body. You have to wrap that stuff in plastic so it doesn't dry out on you unevenly again. And then you have to card it, or however you do to like transfer a 400-pound figure into a kiln. You'll have to also split it into pieces, and like you're literally like taking care of this thing just until it's ready to exist on its own. And you can't do that like once a week. You can't do that a couple hours a month. You got to like watch out for them every day. So again, sorry that it's like such a long answer, but it's like it's turned from a daily thing to an everyday investment.
Yeah, I think when you get to that stage of what you're going to spend your time doing and how are you going to do it, it's like what I do in podcasting and all of that. I kind of look at it in a very similar approach where there are people that I know that'll take, I'm going to just record, do 2 hours a week or have you. I'm always working on something or coming up with an idea or laying out a show or doing prep or whatever, because it is, in some respects, a living, breathing thing that if you get out of it what you put into it, and if you're trying to, and I just look at it in a very broad like way when it comes to just like someone taking an artistic approach, it's a time investment and you live and breathe with that stuff and you live and die with it as well. So it's kind of, is that to me. Real life situations, right? So describe a real life situation that has inspired your work.
That's inspired my work. I think one thing that inspired me in the middle of my practice was my mom laughing really hard at something that I brought home. She was like, this is such an expensive education and you brought this home. Like, And she was laughing so hard. And then it's like 50 pounds. She grabbed it and she said, "You can't do anything with this. Don't sell it. This is mine." And then she just walked away. She walked away carrying it. And I've never I guess my mom coming from Korea, she was always very studious about grades. She immigrated here to give me and my brother the best life. And so for some reason, I don't know, I was never really good at school. So there was always that thing where I was worried that I was letting her down just by not being a good student. I don't know. I wasn't meant to be, looking and studying at books all the time. I was always kind of into more tactile things. So when she did that, that was the first time I felt like she was proud of me or proud of something that I did. And so that inspired me to go bigger, to go funnier, to go to do all these things as little love memos to her.
It's like a verifiable feedback. It's like, I'm headed in the right direction. I'm doing the right thing here. I got this response. So it's like my dad's ex-military and all of that stuff. And when I'm doing something that is just in that direction, and it's just like, I'm going to put together this podcast, I'm going to do this. And if he's entertained and if he laughs, I'm like, all right, I cracked him. Now I'm going to double down on it. I'm going to flip or whatever with it. And it's going to be great. So let's see. Let's see what I have here. Who inspires you and who do you hope to inspire?
Yeah, well, so growing up, I think I was super inspired by my mom, who would run to Christina Aguilera for 5 miles a day, just blast one song by her. Wow. And I was like, oh my God. And one time I don't know, my brother and I were just dicking around and we got a yoga ball stuck up the running machine. She just threw it back at us and she kept running. So in a nutshell, that's my mom. Yeah. And so that tenacity inspires me a lot. But and that's I don't know, I think I get really inspired by people around me, people in this city. There's this dude, it was pouring rain, and in this I don't even know what it's called. There's this midsection no, actually it was right on the entrance of a highway, right at the entrance ramp. There's this dude who looked like a Gorillaz, the band Gorillaz. They're characters. So this guy, he literally looked like one of them, lanky, had a really long yellow rain jacket on. The hood was on, and he's just standing there with a cigarette. And I'm like, what are you doing there? I kind of want to make this weird experience too, where things are displaced, but they make sense at the same time. Yeah. So I don't know. Those are incidents. Artists though, Yoshimoto Nara. I think, who else is someone who I look at a lot? Besides Yoshimoto Nara. I mean, I don't look at a lot of artists, but I think I had a solid group at one point. Loners that have spent their whole lives with their work. I think I mentioned, so Viola Fry. That woman inspires me because she continued to build large things until she had to get wheelchaired and ramped up to them. Ended up building with one hand at the end, and just that's how she went. She was like, okay, if I could do physical therapy and then get back into the studio, that's how it's going to work. But she's one of my biggest heroes, I would say. I feel there aren't a lot of people to look up to that aren't white, but that they're just kind of getting these opportunities and just really able to express themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I actually started this archive called the Holy Compendium, which is a sculpture archive since the Civil War period of BIPOC artists, primarily sculptors, and I organized it by generation.
Sure.
And so I guess for anyone who kind of I think there's a lot of anxiety over cultural authenticity these days, and people are fighting, the American flag or what it represents, but it literally there is no one kind of person that represents that. And I hope that my work shows that anyone has the right or the freedom to make anything that is of you. So let's hope I just hope at least one person just kind of looks at that and then feels like they could claim space or claim that voice too.
That's amazing. Like, you consistently work on your stuff and you just keep doing it. It's just not, I did this for a while, or however it's framed, however it's fashioned. Like, some people this is the stage in which I created this, and now this is the stage I'm creating this, but you're always creating. That's important to me. And I think, like, it shouldn't stop, because I think it, causes, like, the brain to, like, atrophy or something. Like, you always have to be just working on something. So back to Baltimore. Baltimore. What are your favorite places in Baltimore?
So I was thinking about this the other day. I got lost driving around, and, I think it's like there's this distillery in Canton, and it's like right by the water, and there are all these giant Navy boats. I ended up in this parking lot, and I just got out of my car and was able to see, like, the Under Armour factory and the Domino Sugar factory. So I'm pretty sure you can kind of gauge where I was. And I kept, like, walking down. Yeah, I got hopped a fence, just, like, kept walking down this little cove. I don't know what it's called. And I ended up talking to a bunch of sailors, and they're just explaining to me, like, how it is to, just go around in a gorgeous boat. There's, like, this whole sailing scene here that I've, like, only glimpsed at, like, once. But now I kind of go there a lot with my dog, and we just, like, look at the boats going by. It's like, for me, I'm always in the studio. So it's like, if I go somewhere, it's either by accident or it was just for, like, from point A to point B. Like, it's really hard for me, I think, to picture, like, my favorite place to be, because in all honesty or reality, it's like being in the studio.
My favorite place is not where I do my creative stuff, because it also serving as my workplace, and it stinks. It's just like it's all one thing right now. And but yeah, I think just kind of getting out, seeing things, it just gives you a refresher. Like, when you're always working, it's just like, I'm on task, I'm doing things, but when you're able to get out, and even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's a reset.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think that's pretty much most of what I had. So we have an opportunity for some shameless plugs. Do you have any accounts, any things you want to shout out? And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, if you ever want to dabble in clay or do any ceramics, I'm a resident artist and instructor, but also I just think that clay is a soul finding machine. My dog is growling. Hey. Okay, so if you want to make clay, or make any works in it, you should come to Baltimore Clay Works, 5707 Smith Avenue. I also have a show here coming up. It's on the 12th. You have to call and just put in a time slot by appointment. Make an appointment. Call for an appointment. And other than that, if you want to ever see, like, what I'm up to, what I'm working on, I have an Instagram called Little Woogie. I don't know what I was thinking, but one day I started chanting it after, like, I smoked something. And so that's just how that's how it came to be. But yeah, I'm just really excited and super happy that you were able to get me on this podcast, because this is my first interview. So thank you for that.
Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you all for listening. I'm Rob Lee from Getting to the Truth in This Art for Little Woogie, aka Isolina, aka I'm just gonna call you, like, the Clay Zaddy. Like, you're just getting loose with it. And this is Getting to the Truth in This Art, saying there's art in and around Baltimore. All you have to do is look for it.